What's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 111 of the Finale Podcast. Today I'm going to be joined by Cittilad and Tyler to look ahead to NFL Wild Card Weekend. So, guys, before we start, how have you been?
Good.
I'm good, man.
Yeah, just before we go into things as well, let's just get your quick reactions to what went down on Sunday Night Football for the Vikings.
Oh, it was terrible, bro.
Yeah.
Next
It was
next topic.
it's not planned, like four straight trips to the red zone and, not even field goals at, three out of the four.
Yeah.
That just means we'll be that much hungrier going into the playoffs.
Yeah, we're tricking other, teams that might play us,
Yeah.
Rams.
We always have a game like that at around this time of the year. Usually happens wild card weekend. So we got out of the way now.
hmm
Going into the playoffs, ready to go.
Hopefully that's the case because, I thought we were going to take advantage of what seemed like a pretty porous Detroit Lions defense. But in the red zone, I think obviously it's easier to guard, but they just locked us down and, Amik Robertson was having a day. Got to give credit there. And like their secondary was making things tough for Sam Darnold. He had opportunities when you look back at it and, look at the replays, saw Jordan Addison open a couple
hmm
of times there and had a ball that kind of sailed on Justin Jefferson. Jalen Naylor was open a couple of times. Just
Yeah,
wasn't
he
wasn't
was.
the best day. And then Cam Akers had that huge run to set him up to goal situation. They couldn't capitalize there. And then Will Reichard he missed a field goal and he's been missing lately, so that's kind of another concern coming up now. And he's been solid all year, so it kind of like makes you a little bit uneasy for a team that's 14-3 going into this game where, you're playing a team that you lost to earlier in the year. It's kind of like usually you'd be, hosting a playoff game at this point if you're 14-3, but kind of making things tough now on the Vikings. So we'll see what happens.
Hey, as Vikings fans, we're used to being uneasy
Yeah,
all the time, going to every game.
I think Darnold had that piss poor performance, just trick other defenses, you know,
Yeah.
lighten them up.
That's the tape
Hopefully.
they're gonna watch next
But
week. So
under KOC, we've never lost back-to-back road games. So,
Mm.
and this one Monday night is going to be on neutral ground, so that should be in favor of Minnesota.
Oh gosh,
Yeah.
my camera. Technical difficulties.
Markos crashing out over that take.
Mhm.
No, but KSU is also looking for his first playoff win too. So that's another thing that we're trying to get here, and
Hmm.
going to play against
Against
his
his former
former team,
team. Yep.
right? Yeah. So
hmm
that'll be a big opportunity, and that game, of course, with everything that's going on with LA, the wildfires, that game's going to be played in Arizona, and I can confirm I will be present at the game. Just got my ticket earlier today, so Vikings
So
playoff game, first time.
Let's go.
Looking forward to it. State Farm
You want that
Stadium, Glendale.
Cook jersey?
I'm gonna have the JJ white JJ jersey.
Oh yeah.
We're the road team, so I'll be
hmm
representing JJ. Hopefully, he has a better game.
Okay.
But I'm looking forward to it, man. That's a team that we lost to, like I said. Jordan Addison last week, one reception, 0 yards. Hopefully, he can improve on that. But I think it's gonna take a collective effort. I like the way our defense played, though. I will say, starting off that
Yeah.
game, getting 2 turnovers on Goff. That's not easy thing to do. We had a pick in the red zone. We could have even ran that back, Ivan Pace, and then first play of their drive, they tossed it basically a Hail Mary to Harrison Smith. So, you had opportunities, but eventually you can't just give that team too many
Hail Mary.
opportunities. Um, yeah, Jameer Gibbs, that's crazy what he was doing. So, uh, yeah. Well, moving on though, we have this wild
Yeah,
card game, and
Jameer 140 on us against a third ranked rushing defense. So
yeah,
expect Kyron to do the same thing possibly.
he had a big game earlier on in the season, so
Mhm.
that's something to watch out for. If we can stop the run, I think that just sets us up well because
Yeah.
I feel like this year we've done well against the run for the most part. You look at the two games we had against Josh Jacobs, like holding him under 100 yards, like those are indicators that we can stop the run. But I think when we give teams that are good on the run like too many opportunities, they're eventually going to make it work. That's what
Mhm.
happened on Sunday night. But new opportunity. I'm looking forward to Monday night's game. But let's get into the topics here. So head coach openings, of course, guys have been let go. Guys are interviewing. So just want to ask a few questions to you guys. First question I have here: what would you say is your most attractive and least attractive coaching destination? I'll start off with Cittilad.
Most attractive's got to be Vegas, in my opinion, under new ownership with Brady and his influence. He got rid of the GM coach as well, so he's expected to sign, somebody well crafted in the game of football. Offense and defense, you know, in both sides of the field. I feel like not just one particularly, like one side of the football. A GM that's well, represented. I don't know who, but someone well, familiarized in the media world, I guess, GM world, and then just his influence in that area. New stadium, new location, and then a lot of attractive things like they do have what is it, top five pick
Yeah, I
in the
believe
draft.
so. They won late
Yep,
in the
top five.
season, but I believe so.
Mm-hmm. Must have been fourth or fifth, I
I'll look
believe.
it up.
Somebody confirmed that. So yeah, fourth or fifth pick. They're hinting Shador just because he's familiar with Brady. Them
They
two
have
are
the
pretty
sixth
close.
pick.
You know, they could
So,
possibly trade up for Shador, maybe, possibly. Cam Ward is expected to go high.
Mm.
So yeah, just I feel like just Vegas, just new ownership, need a new GM, new coach. Just I feel like it's almost reminiscent of the Vikings under new GM Kawhi and KOC. So
hmm. Yeah, it's always good when you can have an opportunity to bring in a GM and a coach at the same time.
And
Also, I
it
mean, Brock Bowers had an amazing rookie season,
oh
Pro
yeah,
Bowler. So that's another piece you have to look at. And, would you guys say like quarterback is the main thing that they're missing though?
absolutely,
yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
But I mean, like I said, I was talking about that'll probably be the number one target going into the offseason, whether that's targeting one of the young guys early in the draft or signing someone in free agency. I'm not really sure what this free agency quarterback class looks like, but we've seen a lot of big names get moved, especially there's talks with some in the trade market too. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, I think that's definitely that was the one I was leaning towards as my favorite. But I think if I had to pick a favorite, I'd probably say Jacksonville.
Hmm.
Um, Talented team, severely underperformed this year, obviously, struggled with injuries. I mean, every team did, but when you have a fully healthy Trevor Lawrence, Brian Thomas Jr. was incredible this year. They have a solid backfield duo with Travis Etienne and Bigsby. Um, so yeah, I think they just need a coach that can come in, fill some of the gaps on defense. I think they were one of the worst ranked defenses this year across the board. So they have the talent. They're just missing a few pieces. Um, Jacksonville, also obviously beautiful place to live. So I think that's going to be the more attractive destination.
Yeah, plus like the upside there over Vegas is you can actually win the AFC South versus when you play in the AFC West, you're probably not going to win that unless you're a powerhouse. So I think definitely there's some upside there, and hopefully they can get things right with Trevor Lawrence too, because it's some have questioned the decision to pay him because of how he's played so far, but they have some pieces for sure on both sides of the ball. It's just about putting it all together. I think they'd be um, they'd be a good spot for an offensive coordinator to go in there like a Ben Johnson potentially if he finds that worth it. So yeah, definitely a top option. I'll go ahead with mine just to switch it up from what you guys said. I think a top option here is probably going to be the Bears for me. I know they have their struggles, but I mean, when you have a quarterback like Caleb Williams, who kind of was able to figure out towards the end of the season, I think that's just a perfect guy that you want to coach. But they also have the defense. to match. I feel like their defense is a really good unit, have big names all over. I think they'll be able to figure out who they're going to bring in to coach that defense. I don't know if they're going to retain their DC, but I think they have a solid foundation of pieces, and they can make it work. You know, Ben Johnson's been a name that's been thrown out for that spot, and that makes sense for me. But yeah, I mean, when you can go to Chicago and coach up Caleb Williams and bring him around a solid coach and just a good structure around him, I think you can really flourish. And I still think that they can be a good team. You know, they started off this year hot, wasn't able to finish it out on the right note, but I think they're capable of doing some really good things. And I would say that's my most attractive option, just based off the personnel for sure. But if they're not able to hit on this coaching situation here, I think that could be the end for Ryan Poles as GM, because he's giving you another chance to bring in a head coach. Eberflus didn't work out, so I think this is kind of going to be the one shot he has left to make things work. But going back to Cittilad, what would be your least attractive destination?
Least attractive, um, I'd say probably New England,
Hmm.
just because that ownership is really, really, really hard to work with. I guess they're more family oriented. They keep everything kind of family oriented style, just like Gerard Mayer was a player, former player. So that's how he got, into coaching linebacker position, and then worked his way up to his head coach, just familiarizing him with the Kraft family. But bringing in someone new, it's just going to be difficult. Just to change that aspect of going from Bill Belichick with his system, and then Gerard Mayo maintaining somewhat of that Belichick system. Just changing that entire organization around just under new leadership, because the GM is still Robert Kraft's son. You know, so there'll always be a family oriented um team, but that head coach has to change. I feel like just new offense, new system, and just trying to work around Drake May for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, going along with that, I think, yeah, as long as you do have that, ownership and the deeper issues in the front office, it's gonna be really hard for a head coach to come in and really change the culture of this team and really kind of change the direction. So I do think they do have that upside there with Drake May, that, a young offensive minded coach will be all over. But other than that, yeah, tough situation for a coach to walk into, for a ownership that demands results immediately, but also kind of refuses to adapt to the current NFL. My pick for the worst destination was the Saints.
Hmm.
Roster super
Mm.
talented, but they really have no clear direction at quarterback. Carr's future there is kind of uncertain. Rattler wasn't great this year. Um, and not to mention they have a lot of salary cap issues going into this offseason. They don't really have a lot of flexibility. I think they're like 7 million over the cap space going into the offseason. So gonna have to do a lot of reconstructing of this roster to really make things work. And I think it's gonna be a long time before this team is genuinely competitive again. So I think probably the toughest turnaround for a team, and for that reason, the toughest destination.
Yeah, they're almost kind of reminding me of that Miami Heat roster. They're keeping a lot of old heads on their roster. Matthew, Demario Davis, Cam
Yeah.
Jordan, just
Yeah.
AK, and then just signed AK 2 year extension this season.
Hmm.
So just a lot of those old timers. It worked back in 2016, but
Yeah. Yeah, they're just kind of hanging on to that little bit of hope, and I think they're
mhm.
just the window for a lot of those players is closing, and their roster just is in no place to be competitive immediately. So I think it's gonna be a tough turnaround for them.
Yeah, I would have to say, I definitely agree with Siddlad's pick. The Patriots would be mine for sure. I mean, Aaron Glenn, the Lions DC, already declined to interview with them, so it just kind of shows you like there's not a very um, interesting, foundation there.
Yeah.
Besides a couple of players, their skill position group is pretty horrid. Drake May is a really good
Hmm.
player. Christian Gonzalez, of course, talked about a lot, but just a lot of just individual players and not enough surrounding cast to make things work. And that goes down to, yeah, just I think it was I forgot who said it, but just adapting. I feel like their inability to do that has kind of put them in this situation, and it's pretty dreadful. Like looking ahead to who would want to come here and who's going to be able to turn things around. Because as much as the head coach can do his wonders, I think you need the whole structure to be in place, and that's really what we saw in Detroit and what led to their turnaround. Because it wasn't just Dan Campbell; it was Brad Holmes and everybody else to really put it all together and make things work to put that team in position to succeed in the short term and the long term. But I would have to say, if not them or the Saints, I'd go with the Jets just because of, this is a team that hasn't made the playoffs in a very long time. And yeah, there's the possibility to bring in a head coach and a GM at the same time, but it's just uncertainty, not only with the organization, but personnel. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is getting older, and there's already talks about him being out of the door. So you don't know how long that's going to mean for Devontae Adams to still be there before he wants out. And then these other guys are already growing kind of frustrated with the situation, like Brees Hall going back and forth on Twitter with fans.
Hmm.
Sauce Gardner saying he's not going to recruit. I forgot who it was, but he said it on Instagram. He's like, I'm not going to tell him to come here. So it's
Oh
like,
yeah. Yeah, he's
uh,
like, I will not be doing
I
that.
will not be, I will not be doing that. So it's like, it's
Oh,
just
Garrett. Oh no, not Garrett. Sorry.
somebody. I forgot who
Um,
it was, but
it was a wide receiver, wasn't it?
I don't remember. Yeah, it was after like a jersey swap, and someone's like, tell him to come to New York, and he's like,
Oh,
I will
AJ
not
Brown.
be doing that.
was it
AJ
AJ
Brown.
Brown? I don't know who
Hmm.
it was, bro. But he said that, and I'm just like, you never hear that, So it kind of just speaks to everything that's going on there. And this is an organization that, I had optimism about like a couple of years ago after these guys' rookie years of, Garrett Wilson, Brees Hall, Sauce Gardner, and, Jermaine Johnson, those guys that came in. But now it's kind of, all that hype is dying down, and, they're already moving on from A-Rod. So a lot of uncertainty. So there'd have to be some major things to change before you can look at that spot and be like, that's the spot where I can make some things happen if you're a coaching candidate, because it's not just on the coach, like I said. So I think that'd be my least attractive if I had to pick one outside of the Bears. I mean, outside of the Patriots and Saints. Uh, on top
Yeah,
of
speaking
that,
of just
okay,
a little bit more on the Patriots. Yeah, rumors are going around social media about Mike Vrabel coming back. Like I said, like I mentioned,
That's
former
what I've heard.
player.
Yeah.
Tenured, long tenured Patriot. Familiarized with himself with the Kraft family. So, if someone familiar with that organization, always has the chance to come back more than a new guy. I don't, I wouldn't be surprised if Beeflo got the job there.
Yeah. I just feel like that makes the most sense of a signing.
Hmm.
I mean, it doesn't seem like they're going in the direction of one of these, the younger names that are popping up. So it just, yeah, given the
Yeah,
history and his connection with the team, yeah, I feel like that signing makes the most sense.
yeah. I mean, Matt Patricia can come back as a coordinator there too. So, you know, Ozempic, Patricia.
Yeah.
yeah.
What do you guys
Uh,
think of Ben Johnson possibly going to the Bears? That's where I have him as my top destination.
They'll be good offensively.
Yeah, absolutely. I like the going to a division rival aspect of it. I feel like
Hmm.
I feel like that doesn't happen very often, and but this seems like the kind of the perfect scenario for him, with a
Yeah.
young quarterback, a lot of talent on that offense, a lot of
Yep.
different pieces he can work with. You pair him with a solid defensive coordinator, and that team's scary.
yeah. No, I definitely agree with that. I think that's the spot he should be targeting. I think he already interviewed with them, if I'm not mistaken. But I mean, it's a really good destination if he can land there. Last year had a really good opportunity to leave as well, but decided to stay. So, I think this is going to be the year where he actually leaves. And when you look at all these destinations, I think that's just the best one where you're going to be set up really well offensively, and then you just got to find the guys to bring in defensively, and you'll be just fine. I mean, we saw with the Vikings, we kind of experienced it firsthand, bring in an offensive guy and then just take some time to find your DC. Donatel definitely didn't work out, but Flores was the guy that just came in and was able to make it work. So I think when you bring in an offensive coordinator to be your head coach, you're not worried about, him leaving. Like when the Vikings had Mike Zimmer and we had to part ways with, different offensive coordinators like Musgrave after we went to the NFC Championship and
Stefanski.
Yeah.
Stefanski, right? So who was a multi-time coach of the year. So you're in a good spot when you can get that OC to come in and, a guy like Ben Johnson, I think he's well suited to come in there and, put that team in position to succeed, at least offensively, because, I would say they underperformed offensively as well, and I
Hmm.
think he's a guy that can kind of fix those issues. And, they have the personnel to make it happen. So I'd be looking at that one. I feel like that's the most attractive spot for him. But would you guys say that Ben Johnson is the best coaching candidate available?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah, if Ben Johnson leaves, I'd say Ken Dorsey's gonna get his job in Detroit.
Hmm.
You know, familiar game plan, almost identical.
Okay.
You think Ben Johnson and possibly Aaron Glenn both take a head coaching job regardless of what happens in the playoffs?
Say
I
Ben more likely than Aaron,
Yeah.
just because how offenses have been rapidly growing the last 5 years.
Yeah. I think Ben's going to be a head coach next year regardless. Um, and yeah, I think he's definitely the top candidate.
Well, they were
I
saying
think
Pete Carroll
at least who I would want. I wouldn't
talks of
want
Pete
Pete
Carroll
Carroll.
coming back too. No, you can go to Jacksonville and go retire, huh?
Yeah. Good luck with the Jets, buddy.
No, but I like Aaron Glenn too, just a player's coach, big culture guy, kind of embodies what Dan Campbell's about. So I think a team that's kind of in an uncertain situation, maybe like the Saints, I think that'd be a good spot. If I'm not mistaken, he used to coach in New Orleans, so um, with Dan Campbell. So I need a confirmation on that. But I like Aaron Glenn as a candidate too. A lot of people talk about the Lions defense allowing like 30 points per game, but they're still coached well. I would say, and that showed in that big moments like it did on Sunday night. So I think he's a really good coach. Yeah, he coached in New Orleans, so I think a reunion there might be something they could look at. Um, but yeah, I like Aaron Glenn. Uh, Mike Vrabel I like as well. I think he's deserving of a spot somewhere. I know the Bears interviewed him. I know the Patriots did or plan to. So he's definitely a guy that you could see coming in with everything he did in Tennessee. I think that's the type of guy you want to bring in. Um, but moving on though, there's some guys that, stayed in their positions and, that raised some question marks like Mike McCarthy in Dallas and Raheem Morris in Atlanta. What do you guys think of those organizations' decisions to hold on to those guys?
I think to hold on to them for now. You know,
You think that was the right
we got.
decision?
I think we got a long off season. I think there are a couple of organizations that are both not really. They're not really in a clear direction either. You know, they're trying to be competitive, but they're obviously not quite there. So I don't know if it's the right decision, but I feel like it might just make sense from a business
Yeah,
standpoint for the time being.
in Raheem's case, I feel like they have a somewhat of a bright future with Penix, so they see a little improvement from him. So I see him starting next season and
Yeah.
just working on with Bijan being how good he was and Drake London improving majorly this season and Kyle Pitts as well. Putting up some numbers here and there, but defense was solid. Keep them close in the games. I believe they were like 4-2 in the division before the last 5 or 6 games, late stretch. Um, just seeing how they'll progress with Penix, I feel like under his leadership, and just seeing going from there. But yeah, it's kind of too early to can him. I feel like, but and then Mike
Yeah,
McCarthy, yeah, it's just injury, riddled season. Dak especially. So
for sure. No, I think there's just, Dallas. The expectations are pretty crazy over there, and they've had some good seasons, but it hasn't translated to playoff success. And they definitely felt the loss, I would say, of Dan Quinn to that defense. So I think just a number of things there. Like you mentioned, injuries as well, Trayvon Diggs. So, there's some guys that they were missing. So I think it makes sense to bring him back, see how they can perform. But um, they don't want it to turn into like I saw people talking about it online, like a Jason Garrett situation where kind of saw Jason Garrett stay there a little bit too long in Dallas. We probably should have left a little bit earlier. But I think Mike McCarthy he's gotten the job done there. We'll see if they retain Mike Zimmer or what his plans are in the future, but the defense definitely wasn't as good this year. And then Raheem Morris, I think, the only possibility or reason why you can say he should have got fired was just because of the decisions that the organization made, and specifically with Kirk Cousins. I think that was some of the things that probably led to them missing the playoffs. Because I feel like if you had Michael Penix, he could have maybe started poorly, but definitely could have been a guy that could turn it around the second half of the season. And yeah, I think that division's definitely getting better. We saw the way Bryce Young ended the season and the Carolina Panthers in general. So they're going to have some competition moving forward. So Michael Penix, I feel like, looking forward to seeing how he can continue to develop alongside those guys on offense. So I think, yeah, I agree with the decisions to retain Raheem Morris, but, definitely a team that's probably expecting results to come pretty quickly in the near future, I would say.
Hmm.
And then lastly, before we move on to these playoff picks, there's these coaches interviewing, and some of them are still, you know, coaching for playoff teams. So, kind of wanted to ask you guys, should coaching candidates be interviewing or be allowed to interview during the week of their playoff games?
Yeah, I'd say yeah. Why not?
Yeah.
Because they have to arrive the day before the game, anyways. You know, it's just how it's set up. But yeah, like KOC's, interview, and then they won the Super Bowl, so it worked out well.
Stefanski
Yeah.
interviewed for Cleveland when we were about to play San Fran.
Hmm.
People always attribute that to, having bad performances in the playoffs because that was definitely a bad performance that game. But, you know, I I would
I don't think it
say,
diverts them from their game plan. They,
yeah, just focus, I guess, and like just being all in on your team and
Yeah.
that sort of thing, how that, completely changes once you have interest. I think that can sort of be a distraction, but um, I
the
don't
interview
know.
can always be over Zoom too, so not
Oh,
in
and they are no,
person.
they are over Zoom. Like,
Yeah.
Brian Flores or not Brian Flores, but like the teams that have a bye this week, like the Lions coordinators, like those guys are interviewing this week because they don't have anything going on. But like for teams that are, in the wild card weekend, that's kind of where it's like, oh, I don't know. Because there's a lot of focus required to be successful in the league. So some people have brought up those reasons why they should maybe change that rule. But you brought up KOC. I mean, that's a guy that the Vikings waited on, um, and obviously it's paid off. So I don't know, just something to think about because it's been brought up a couple of times. But I know they changed the rule recently to kind of. Oh yeah, let me just read this to what I was reading. They said they limit it to 3 hours for teams or for coordinators that are coaching on playoff teams that are playing this week. So they have a limit of how long you can interview. So you can't do the whole
Walk through
yeah, all that big deal stuff that they can't give them the full interview
tour.
experience. You know what I'm saying? Like
Hmm.
it's just a
Yeah.
limited sort of version of it. So I don't know how that works for these guys that are interviewing, but yeah, just something that the league is looking at. And then moving on.
I
Go ahead.
imagine these interviews are more just teams expressing interest too, letting these candidates know, like, hey, we want you over here.
And then yeah,
We want to be on your radar. And
for a
then,
second interview
as the
too.
off season progresses, yeah,
Yeah, that makes sense as well. Uh, Playoff brackets, wild card weekend starting
Yep.
tomorrow. So I'll save mine for last. Pretty much what we're gonna do is just go over your bracket. Hopefully you guys have the seating right and everything, how teams would play in the
Hmm.
following rounds,
yep.
but pretty much explain your picks and yeah, go from there. Whoever wants to start.
I could go.
Okay.
So I'm gonna go with the AFC side first.
Sure.
So if it's gonna go wild card divisional, then to the championship.
Gotcha.
All right. Tomorrow's game, first game, Chargers at Houston. I got Chargers winning that, just because they're consistently better than CJ Stroud. So, and then tomorrow's night game, I got so it's Pittsburgh at Baltimore. I got Baltimore, of course. In addition to Derrick Henry, I feel like they can either throw the ball with Lamar. He's a solid passer this year, MVP, MV3,
Hmm.
and they can ground and pound, with Henry. No Zay, by the way, but
Yep.
Bateman's been solid. Likely he's under the radar. Mark Andrews, 11 touchdowns after week 8, so
Yeah.
sleeper. And then Denver at Buffalo. This one's a toss up for me because, that weird statistic going around, Twitter about Sean Payton since 2017. He has a winning record against bald headed coaches, McDermott, for example. He's 30 and 12. But, anyways, I digress. I got Buffalo, of course, just because home field advantage. Just that playoff atmosphere over there is kind of crazy. Winter weather advisory over there as well. Snow moving over there. Bo Nix's first playoff game, so it might be a little, nerve wracking for him. And yeah, just that Buffalo, defense might do something to you. But they play a lot of man coverage, so I expect to see a lot of crossing routes. So, but they'll get exposed easily. Moving on to the divisional. So LA is going to play in Kansas City. You know how that's going to go. Kansas City's going to pull off some black magic stuff over there in Arrowhead Stadium or MEHA or whatever stadium. So I got Kansas City, of course. They won't win big, so. But then I got Baltimore going to Buffalo. I got Buffalo, or no, I got Baltimore. I feel like those top two MVPs going at it. I feel like Lamar just has that poise this year where he'll make better decisions than Josh Allen, because Josh Allen will always do what Josh Allen does, either run or throw a pick. And then the conference championship, Baltimore is going back to Kansas City for the get back for the week 1. I got Baltimore winning that, and they will come off a likely touchdown in the end zone, feed inbounds this time.
Hmm.
I got Baltimore going to New Orleans.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. NFC side. um, we'll go. We'll go the low seating here. We got Green Bay playing in Philly. Jalen Hurts is playing confirmed. It's either Hurts will give you 3 tutties or Saquon will give you 3 tutties. So I got Philly, of course. That atmosphere over there is kind of tough to beat. Like in Financial Field, that's gonna be hard to beat over there. And then Green Bay, they don't do good against winning teams, especially this season. They were 1-5 in their division, almost, you know, almost winless in the division without that, block field goal. So I got Philly winning that. Just better side of the football. I feel like their corners are stepping it up this year as well. Coming from Cooper DeJean. And then I got Washington plays at Tampa. I got the upset here. I got Washington. I feel like Jaden Daniels, best case, best case for offensive rookie of the year. I feel like he's playing lights out. He'll give you 2 or 3 tutties any given day. He has that calmness, that poise I was talking about. That level of clear headedness heading to the games. He's not overzealous or anything. He just goes in there and plays football. He's really calm and poised for such a young quarterback, and especially his first playoff game. That's gonna be a tough area. But I feel like Baker, he'll do what Baker does best. He'll give you 3 tutties or 3 picks.
Maybe both.
Yeah, or both. 30 for 30. And then we got the neutral game in Glendale, right? Glendale. Yep. Minnesota retirees over there, so I got Minnesota.
Hmm.
So I got Minnesota just because we need that get back and just our defense. They carried us through that entire game up to the fourth quarter, Detroit. So just fix those key mistakes. Darnold throwing high, um, clean up the pocket. Stop holding the ball for 10 seconds, dump it off to a flat, clean up those mistakes, develop the run game, especially with Cam. You know, dump it off short or get some crossing routes going with man coverage. But other than that, Minnesota, I feel like just better overall team. We stop Puka. That's all we need to do. Stop Puka and stop the run game, and we win the game. All right, divisional. Minnesota going to Philly. It's gonna be tough. This one's a tough one. Um, I think my bias he took over. Not gonna lie to you.
We all got the same list probably.
Yeah, I'm gonna save that for last here. So we got Washington going to Detroit. Yeah, just that offensive matchup. I feel like Detroit just it beats you. They'll give you five tutties, and then that defense just strangles you down. If Terry can't get going over there, they're not going to win. You know, you can't have Zacchaeus doing what Terry does. Terry can't go one catch for 5 yards that entire game. He needs to go crazy. Brian Robinson as well, Jeremy McNichols as well, Zach Ertz as well. Let Luke McCaffrey needs to do something too. Their third string. But yeah, just an L for the rookie, but it'll be a tough L, but just against a better team. That's all. And then yeah, I got Minnesota against the Eagles, just because it's going to be an offensive matchup. But I feel like we won't be able to stop Saquon, but we will be able to stop Jalen.
Yeah.
That's the key to it all. Just whoever can stop Saquon, stop Jalen, and just you got to clean up. Like I said, clean up the pocket, release the ball, dump it off. Those negative plays hurts us too, and you know just those obvious mistakes need to be cleaned up. And then championship, NFC, going back to Detroit.
Rematch.
Unfortunately, we will not be getting the get back. It's so hard to beat a team 3 times in a row, but 0-2 so far. It's just that team, just overall consistently better, even with that depleted defense. Aaron Glenn, he adjusts week in, week out, even play by play. Terran Arnold went out, came in with the third string, he clamped. So yeah, just overall their consistency and just Goff being smart with the football, I guess. But other than that, last game, he just, what an arm punt. Anyways, so it's gonna be Baltimore, Detroit for the chip. I got to go with MB3 Lamar winning his first chip, cementing his name as top 10 of all time. He'll get the MB3, he'll get the chip, and there's a crazy stat. The last 3 Super Bowls won by the Ravens will be a 2-year gap since their first one. From 03, 12 years, will be 2013, Flacco's run. 12 years, 2013 plus 12, 2025, Lamar's run. 12 years, all 3, Trent Dilfer, by the way.
Okay. I like the list.
So just Baltimore, they got a better defense. They got at least 2 Pro Bowlers, at least on that defense. Roquan made the Pro Bowl. Kyle Hamilton's playing lights out. Nate Wiggins, a star-studded, rookie corner, and then with Marlon on the other side, that's crazy matchup. And don't forget about that, CB1 Michael Pierce, 355-pound man. So watch out for him lurking around. But other than that, Kyle Van Noy's been playing lights out. He's sleeper this year. I don't know how he didn't make the Pro Bowl. So yeah, my bracket. I got Baltimore winning it
Let's
back
go.
Okay.
in the Caesar Dome,
Yeah.
as Flacco did.
I like it.
Tyler.
All right. A lot of my early picks are pretty similar to Citillad's, but it definitely varies towards the end there.
Mm,
Um, Starting off in the wild card, I'll kind of go in the similar order. Do the AFC first.
okay.
I have the Bills over the Broncos. The Broncos played an incredible season. I do think this will be a competitive game. I don't think it'll be, Bills blowing them up by any means.
Yeah.
I think it's gonna be a lot closer than people expect, but I think Josh Allen just prevails and finds a way to win this game. Ravens handling the Steelers pretty easily. Steelers again played great, but they just don't have the firepower to really stay competitive against this Baltimore team. Chargers over the Texans. I think Texans have just had too many question marks this year. They've had a lot of injuries. They've had some great games, some not so great games. So I think the Chargers have just been way more consistent, and the momentum will carry them over in this game. Going to the next round, Chiefs versus Chargers. I had the Chiefs winning. Um, I don't know. I don't know if they'll necessarily need any of their little voodoo magic that they're doing to get through this game. I think they win this one pretty handedly, but of course you never know with these types of matchups. And then Ravens versus the Bills. We saw what happened last time these two teams played. I think Lamar
It was
and Derrick Henry is just too much for them to handle. So I think they win this one. Maybe not as convincingly as they did the first time they played, but I think they still are the better team here. Which then brings us to Chiefs versus the Ravens. This is where things get a little weird. I think this is where we have the Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce game. You know, they just they show exactly why they've won back-to-back Super Bowls on their way to their next one. I think this is the game. They need a little magic, maybe a little help from the refs, but they win it and they go to their third straight Super Bowl. Going over to the NFC, Eagles, Packers. I think Eagles win this one. I would have felt differently if Jalen Hurts wasn't playing, but I think with fully healthy, they're just too much to handle. I think they're the better team here. Um, Packers, lots of promise going for the future, but I think they're just not quite there yet. Too many inconsistencies throughout the year. Commanders over the Buccaneers. I think this will be a great matchup, but Jaden Daniels has been absolutely incredible all season long. I think that continues. I think he's good enough to be considered a top quarterback already at this point. So I think sort of like how CJ Stroud had last year, he just kind of stepped in and was performing right away. So I think he comes in and gets his first playoff win in his first playoff game. And we have the Vikings versus the Rams. Again, not the best outcome the first time these two teams played, but I think the Vikings coming off of the toughest loss of the season, instead of hanging our heads, we'll come out ready to perform, ready to prove people wrong like we've been doing all year. So I think we come out and win this one pretty convincingly. I think we handle things. Next round, we have Lions versus the Commanders. I do think the Lions win this one. Like Cittilad had mentioned, it'll be an offensive battle, but that Lions offense is just something else. Arguably something like we've never seen before. So I think they take control of this game pretty easily, and I think that defense is just going to be too much for Washington. And then the rematch from a few years ago, Vikings at Philly. This will definitely be a tough game. We don't historically we don't match up well against the Eagles. at least over the past few seasons. So we're really going to have to bring something, a whole new game plan, especially if we want to stop that rushing attack that Philly has. But I think this defense is definitely capable, um, probably more capable than any defense we've had over the past however many seasons. So I think we'll be able to figure it out. And I think the Vikings win this one, which means Vikings Lions NFC Championship game. And maybe it's a biased pick, but as long as there's a possibility, give me the Vikings. You
Mm,
know,
let's go.
Ooh,
if I pick them to lose and they win, what do I look like?
right.
Fair weather fan. No offense to the lad. No, I'm just kidding. Um,
Being a realist.
no, it's definitely not a game that I feel strongly about, especially given what happened just last week. But I have full confidence in this team. I'm a full Sam Darnold believer now. He's turned me around at this point in the season, so I'm all in. I think the Vikings win this one and are matched up with the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. And I think the Vikings win because why not?
Hey, okay.
B Flow, another defensive mastermind game plan from B Flow again.
Yes, sir.
I
I
like it. I
like it.
like it. That's a solid bracket right there. I'll go ahead with mine then. Starting off with the AFC side, I think the Bills handle Denver pretty easy here. Like Cittilad mentioned, Bo Nix's first playoff game, it's going to be some ups and downs. Um, but of course, that team is probably coming in with a lot of confidence with how they smacked the Chiefs. But of course, as a Chiefs team that didn't play their starters, so but confidence can do a lot for a matchup like this. And yeah, I think the the better team is just going to win it. The Bills are the better team, so I feel like that's what's going to happen here. Um, moving on, Steelers at Baltimore. Baltimore is just the better team. They've shown it. The Steelers, after their hot start to the season, just have kind of shown that they're, kind of that middle 10 win team. And Baltimore is just, they have just too many pieces, even without Zay Flowers. The run game is too dominant. Lamar Jackson and the way he's been connecting with his receivers of late, like Mark Andrews for touchdowns and like Rashad Bateman, who's had a good season. I think it's just too much for the Steelers to handle. They can have their days defensively, but they're going to need to be playing at a really high level to be able to even go toe to toe with this crazy offense. But I don't think it's going to happen. I think Baltimore's just too good. So I got Baltimore winning. I thought about this one a lot. I saw coming into last year's game where Houston was hosting Cleveland. Cleveland just didn't come in, even though they were the favorites and they didn't have their best game. And the Texans had a day at home. But I think with the way the Texans are coming into the playoffs this time around, it's just not enough. And I just think this is where you're going to see Justin Herbert get his first playoff victory, and that team's just going to get things coming in, figuring it out. And they're a team that's solid, and I like what the Chargers have done this season. So under Harbaugh, so Jim Harbaugh, so I like what they're about. I think this is a game where they can control things offensively and defensively as well, with how that unit's not really ticking this year. So I like the Chargers in this one. Moving on, the Chargers lost to the KC Chiefs, Kansas City Chiefs, by 2 points earlier this year. And if I'm not mistaken, that was on the road, 17-19. I think they're going to come into Kansas City and get the victory here.
For the block
Surprise,
field goal?
surprise, yeah. I think they're
Yeah.
going to get a surprise one here.
Mm.
A lot of people aren't seeing it coming, but I just think the Chargers are going to have their way with, this being the third time against a divisional opponent and the close matchups, both games this season being one score. I think they can get it done here, and the Chargers are just going to go to the championship game. I think that's what's going to happen. I just feel like they're a good team. They're ticking, and I think Herbert's going to get it done here. Other side of things, yeah, this game in Buffalo between Baltimore and the Bills, I just think the Bills aren't going to get it done here. I feel like both these quarterbacks are trying to get it to the Super Bowl once again. Not once again, but just for the first time, these two guys have been battling all season for the MVP award. Um, these are two guys that have been stopped by Patrick Mahomes many times, but this time around, one's going to have to win. I think Baltimore's just the better team. Really good season for Buffalo, but I just think this is where it's going to end. And I just feel like Baltimore's a little bit too much for what Buffalo has to offer. And I think these two teams did match up earlier in the season. I feel like the game was in Baltimore though, so I think that could be a little
Mhm.
bit different. But I feel like Baltimore's got it in control here. And then in the AFC Championship, I think the little Cinderella run comes to an end, and for the Chargers, and the Ravens get it done here, and Lamar goes to his first Super Bowl. I just think this could be a game where you just see a stinker from the Chargers. I just think they won't come ready for this sort of game. It's going to be a big one, and I just think the Ravens have it handled here, and they'll be going to the
Brother
Super
reunion.
Bowl. Yeah, swimmingly going to the Super Bowl. Um, and yeah, Harbaugh Bowl, conference championship game. I just feel like the Ravens get it done, and they go to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I feel like the Chargers have the best chance to win in Kansas City than any other team.
Yeah, I like their odds a lot.
Yeah,
NFC side of things, thought about this one as well. The Packers as a 7th seed last year went into Dallas and shocked everyone, but with the way they're coming into this playoff, two-game losing streak against not only the Vikings but losing to Chicago, I just don't think they have the momentum right now, and it would shock me if they won this game. So I'm going to go with Philly winning this one at home. Washington going into Tampa. I think Tampa get it done here. I like Washington. I like them as an upset pick, but I feel like Tampa's kind of figured things out with the last couple of wins, big wins that they needed, and kind of in a way getting their playoffs started early. So I like what they're doing at the moment, and I think Baker Mayfield's going to come into this game with the proper approach, and he's going to protect the football. He's going to get it done. It's been really good this season, so I think that continues here, and they have a pretty good day. I like what Washington has done, of course, all season long, but there are games where they just haven't been themselves, and I think this could be one, and I wouldn't be surprised it's a playoff game. A lot of guys just coming into a new situation. A lot of people are already talking about Lattimore versus Evans already. That's going to be an interesting battle. But yeah, I just like what the Bucks are doing, man. I like what they're doing, and I think they're going to get this win here against an inexperienced Commanders team. Vikings at Rams, neutral grounds. I like the Vikings in this matchup. They're going to be able to correct their mistakes. Got to remember that when they lost to this Rams team, it was on a short week after losing to Detroit just 4 days earlier than that. So I think they're going to come into this one ready. Brian Flores already talked about how they didn't know Puka Nacua was going to play until a few hours before that game. So they're going to have, the game plan sorted out for this matchup. And I think their defense will be able to, make sure that they right their wrongs and stop Kyron Williams in this game. And that really opens it up for their pass rush to get to the quarterback, led by All Pro, just announced today, Andrew Van Ginkel, alongside Jonathan Grenard. I think they're going to get home to the quarterback a couple of times. Hopefully, Pat Jones is able to come back for this game, and the defense is going to be flying. So I got them winning in LA, which leads me to Vikings going to Detroit, as Dan Campbell predicted after the Sunday Night Football game, telling Kevin O'Connell he'll see him in Detroit, and that's what's going to happen here. But some team is going to have to win this game, of course, and yeah, I think the Lions are going to hit the showers early. First round bye. I got the Vikings winning this one.
Let's go.
I just feel like, man, missed opportunities are how you can describe these games that they've had against Detroit. Even going back to the first one, you close out that last drive at the end there, you win at home earlier on in the season, and then of course the missed opportunities were plentiful in Week 18 against Detroit. So I think the Vikings are really going to come into this one with the focused mindset, focused approach. Not easy, as I said, to beat a team 3 times in a row. That's why I think the Chargers benefit on the AFC side against the Chiefs, and I think the Vikings benefit here against a team that they can definitely compete with. It's not easy to say, but I think it's fair to say that the more disciplined team is probably Detroit. But I like the Vikings' chances here being able to correct their mistakes and have a productive day in Detroit. I know that environment's going to be rowdy. We saw last year the 2 playoff games they had in Ford Field. It was crazy, but I think the Vikings are going to be able to handle it. Um, they might not be tested with the rowdy environment in this wild card game, considering it's in neutral grounds. And even if it wasn't SoFi, that's not the craziest environment. But I think they're going to be able to get it done, man. I just have the belief that they can go into Detroit and get the job done. They had chances, so I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility at all. So I got them winning this one, and then
Damn it.
I got Baker going into Philly and getting the job done, man. Um,
Mm.
yeah, I
Mm.
like what the Bucks team is doing right now. And I just, I've seen some games out of Philly this year where they've looked beatable. And most recently that came against Carolina where they honestly could have lost that game at home. So I think this is a team that's beatable. Um, Going into Philly is not easy, but you can get some things done against that defense with the way their receivers have been playing this year, and of course their run game. And we saw last year it happened. The Bucks beat Philly. Of course, that Philly team was in a different sort of state of mind with how the second half of their season went. But I think if you can't get the passing game going in this game, and especially the run game going in Philly, I think it's going to make things tough, and it's going to force the quarterback Jalen Hurts to be a guy that's going to have to pass the ball and sort of make some plays happen on that, and it's going to make it tougher on the receivers. And I trust Bowles to really figure out what's the best plan of attack is here against that offense in Philly. So I got the Bucks winning. So Tampa Bay is gonna host the NFC Championship game, and I think it's a favorable matchup for Minnesota. And we've seen plenty of times in the past where we could have said that, and the Vikings they don't get it done. But I think this time they do. Sam Darnold versus Baker Mayfield, guys that have been compared all season long for their resurrections in their careers. I think Baker Mayfield is going to be unable to get the job done against this pass rush, and I think the Vikings are just going to be a little bit too much. And I got the Vikings going back to the Super Bowl after I don't know how many years it's been. So I'm
40.
confident. I'm confident in that pick right there. Um, of course, it's really a big game when they have to beat Detroit, but I think they can beat Tampa Bay if it's in Tampa for sure. So that sets up a Baltimore versus Minnesota's Super Bowl in my bracket. And guess what? Vikings are gonna lose another Super Bowl.
Yep.
Yeah, they're not gonna win this game. I
Oh, and
just think
5.
Baltimore is too crazy. Both sides of the ball. You got to play mistake-free football. I think they get it done there, and Lamar gets his first ring. So yeah, that's my bracket.
Mm.
Yeah,
Let's go. MB3
yeah, man.
and a Super Bowl MVP in the
Yeah,
ring. Whoo, Lamar.
You think you
Different,
think
different.
that's top 10 conversations already?
all
Yeah, once
time.
he gets this ring,
Ooh,
it'll solidify him as top 10.
Hmm.
Because when
yeah,
Payne got his ring, it solidified him top 10.
yeah. I think it would put him
Well, the
definitely up
The
there.
Vikings are gonna win, so I guess we'll never know.
It
I
took
guess
Brady
we'll.
5 to get the GOAT status, so
I
it'll
feel
take
like
one for Lamar to
if
get.
this happens, if Baltimore win, bro, I think it's gonna set them up for like consistent success and like being maybe that next Chiefs team that just gets it done year in year out. Because I think
Absolutely.
we're in this phase right now where the Chiefs are having this dynasty, but it just takes a team to take them down. And in this bracket that I have here, Baltimore or Buffalo don't take them down. It's the Chargers who take them down. But I feel like Lamar just needs to see that that championship ring. Once he gets that, he'll have all the confidence in the world to be able to beat the best teams. And the AFC is
He's
gonna
playing smart, really
yeah,
smart football this season.
yeah.
He's not being careless whatsoever. He, he doesn't force his run. He'll run when he needs to.
Yeah. Beating
It's
the
just
running back allegations.
Yes.
by far. Yeah, I
QB1,
mean,
RB1.
we saw last year as well. He didn't look like himself in that AFC Championship game. So as long as he doesn't have one of those games where he just is out of character, which has happened for him in the playoffs, I think that sets him up for just controlling the AFC for many years to come. Because not only is he probably up there as the best quarterback, but he has the team to get it done as well. These other guys might not have the team to compare, like the Ravens. So I think that's set up for many years of success for Baltimore. And the same goes for Josh Allen in Buffalo. I think if they are able to get it done as well, because that's a
Yeah.
team that's gotten close a couple of times too.
It all depends on Josh Allen. That's it.
Yeah, he's
You
the
live and die
difference
by
maker.
Josh Allen. You know?
So guys, we'll have to see what happens. Playoffs start tomorrow, Saturday. But appreciate you guys coming on.
Yes, sir.
Episode 111, Finale Podcast. We're out of here. We'll see you guys next time. Peace.
Peace.